The summer of ranking continues with the top 32 starting wide receivers in the NFL. These are all every team's best wide receiver ranks, so sorry guys, no Jalen Waddle, George Pickens. This is every team's wide receiver 1 rank. Currently slotted in at number 32 and currently slotted in as the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco, we have Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk, just ever since signing that contract extension, he's just not been it. Aiyuk hasn't been able to stay on the field, and even when he was on the field in 2024, his stats just aren't good at all. When he was healthy last year, he only had one 100-yard receiving game. I know Aiyuk's a guy that doesn't get targeted a ton, but I think he'll get passed up by guys like Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall in the future on the depth chart. Number 31, we got Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts. Sure, I know he was getting balls thrown to him by probably the most inaccurate quarterback in football last year, and Joe Flacco, but his stats just don't cut it for a wide receiver 1 and a guy of his caliber. Pittman Jr. is currently the wide receiver 1 in Indy, but Alec Pierce ended up having more receiving yards last year, and this team is just so dependent on the run and Jonathan Taylor that I just don't expect him to have numbers that are crazy or anything better than the other guys on this list. Number 30 is a very interesting one. We got Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is a guy who hardly played last year, but when he played, his numbers were actually pretty solid, and he's just known as an explosive wide receiver, going along with Xavier Worthy in the Chiefs wide receiver room. 288 yards and 2 touchdowns in a span of 4 games is nothing to scoff at for a guy like Rashee Rice, and I think he has a lot of potential to flourish with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. With that being said, his availability is a big concern as he has struggled with injuries and has had major legal troubles in the past. Number 29, we got the assumed wide receiver 1. In Buffalo, that is Khalil Shakir. Amari Cooper is still unsigned, so we can assume that Khalil Shakir will take the reins as the top dog in this wide receiver room along with Keon Coleman. Shakir is a very talented wide receiver, but his numbers were a little suspect last year, and I just don't know if he's capable of being a wide receiver 1 that the Buffalo Bills are expecting him to be. Last year as the main wide receiver 2, Shakir had 821 yards and 4 touchdowns, averaged 10.8 yards per reception. Yeah, he has a lot of talent. At number 28, we have the Tennessee Titans' Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was on a pretty horrible team last year in the Tennessee Titans, but he still was able to post up some decent numbers. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season, 4 touchdowns, and 64 receptions. With that being said, 4 touchdowns is a little bit suspect for a guy of his caliber, and it just hasn't really lived up to the hype ever since leaving Atlanta and that gambling scandal. He also is getting up there in age at age 30 season. Wide receivers and football players in general just start to decrease. Their talent doesn't get any better at this age. Number 27, we have Jakobi Meyers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Jakobi Meyers posted up decent numbers last year with pretty horrible quarterback play, and I think that his numbers actually will increase now that they have Geno Smith, possibly one of the biggest, just bomb it down the field, hope Jacoby's up there type of quarterbacks in the league. With that being said, though, Brock Bowers is the alpha dog in this passing attack, and they will go to him first, and that means Jakobi Meyers will be playing second fiddle the whole season, even though he's very talented and has a lot of potential to be solid. Number 26, we have Stefon Diggs. Yeah, I know, bold take, but hear me out on this one. A, Stefon Diggs on the Patriots just seems like a weird fit and seems like a desperation play by the New England Patriots as they couldn't find anyone else to play wide receiver. B, Stefon Diggs is 31 years old, recovering from an ACL injury, which is one of the most serious injuries in football, as we all know. And as he's 31 years old, I just don't expect him to recover and be at full strength right away for the New England Patriots offense, and I see him statistically falling off a cliff this year. Among all the Packers wide receiver 2s, 25, we got Jayden Reed. Just joking around, all the Packers wide receivers are actually pretty solid. It's just there's not a distinct dominant one in the group, except Jayden Reed is ranked on the depth chart as our wide receiver 1, and he's actually pretty solid. His numbers were good last year, 857 yards and 6 touchdowns, while sharing the workload with guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and others. I do think his job is in jeopardy now that they got Matthew Golden in the draft, and I expect him to drop in the depth chart. Number 24, a guy who kind of struggles to stay on the field, as well as on a pretty terrible team, we have Chris Olave. I know Chris Olave's quarterback teammates haven't always been the best, and they probably won't get any better for the foreseeable future, but his numbers just aren't that good. While he was on the field, he also, like another wide receiver on this list, had only one 100-yard game. We know Chris Olave has a lot of potential as he was a very high draft pick from Ohio State, a wide receiver factory, and I hope that once he gets the right quarterback throwing him the ball to, he'll become a Pro Bowl wide receiver like we know he can be. Number 23, we have the only rookie on this list in Carolina Panthers, Tet McMillan from Arizona. Not going to bother pronouncing his full name. We're just going to call him Tet because that's what everyone calls him. But yeah, I think this guy's got a lot of potential to be a really solid wide receiver in this league. He was gross at Arizona, where he was the best wide receiver in college football last year. He's an absolute monster of a human being at 6'4". The Panthers camp has expressed how much they're excited to see him play, and I just think he has a lot of potential, and Panthers sure love him, so yeah, gotta put him at 20. Number 22, a huge disappointment last year, is Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Arizona Cardinals. I was such a Marvin Harrison Jr. glazer coming into his rookie year. I drafted him in the first round of my fantasy draft, which is a horrible mistake, because it's safe to say Marvin Harrison Jr. just simply was not that guy. He didn't post up 1,000 yards and hardly broke 100 yards during his rookie year. After being the highest drafted wide receiver in his class, he got outplayed by guys like Ladd McConkey, Brock Bowers, and others. This isn't the end, though. Number 21 of the Cleveland Browns, we have Jameis Winston's best friend, Jerry Jeudy. Last year was a bit of a breakout season for Jerry Jeudy, kind of. But honestly, it was a really weird season for Jerry Jeudy being there. As we know, the quarterback play in Cleveland was pretty bad, but we did see Jerry Jeudy go off for 235 yards against the Denver Broncos. With that being said, his stats are a little bit inflated from that game, and there are guys with better resumes and more consistent plays and seasons under their belt on this list that would just take over Jeudy. Number 20, we have maybe the most athletic wide receiver in the league. We have DK Metcalf, newly acquired Pittsburgh Steeler. I think Metcalf will have good numbers this year, as he really is the only guy in this Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room. Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to have a fun time with DK Metcalf. We usually know, and it's pretty predictable, what we can expect from DK Metcalf, is he's proven to be one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. He's just an athletic freak. Although with Arthur Smith calling the plays, who knows how many times he'll get the ball. Number 19 is DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. Sure, DJ Moore was a benefactor of a pretty weird season for the Chicago Bears, where they had, like other teams, an offensive identity crisis. His route tree was terrible, Shane Waldron, but he did get some more production once Waldron was fired. And then we saw what he can do when, they actually throw him the ball. On 98 receptions, he had 966 yards and 6 touchdowns. He has a lot of talent, a lot of speed, and I think he can be a really good wide receiver once Caleb Williams figures this out, and he'll be used wisely by Ben Johnson. Number 18, a guy who's really starting to come into his own in the NFL. We got Denver Broncos wide receiver 1, Courtland Sutton. We always knew Courtland Sutton could be that alpha dog wide receiver in Denver, but he's just now starting to prove it with competent quarterback play from Bo Nix. And he is definitely that guy, as he has the numbers to prove it. He had a 1,000-yard season last year, 8 touchdowns, and was a huge part in why the Broncos were able to make it back to the playoffs and have their best season since the Peyton Manning era. Courtland Sutton is a dog, and I can't wait to see what he does in year 2 of the Bo Nix era. Number 17, coming back for his sophomore season, we have LA Chargers' Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey isn't your most conventional wide receiver, but he got it done last year in tremendous ways and was one of the best rookie wide receivers in a loaded class of rookie wide receivers. In his rookie season in a new offense in LA, Ladd McConkey was an 1,000-yard receiver. In his rookie season, he had more yards than guys like Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown. Just a tremendous rookie campaign, and I think Ladd McConkey is going to be really good for a long time. Just above Ladd McConkey, we got Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens live and die by the run with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But with that being said, Zay Flowers has shown flashes that he can be a really talented wide receiver when they throw him the ball, and I think he has potential to be one of the league's best. In a run-heavy offense like the Baltimore Ravens, 1,059 yards is nothing to scoff at. Good enough for 19th in all football, averaging 14.3 yards per catch is great numbers, and Zay Flowers is really talented. Number 15, Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. Nico Collins was really good last year for the Houston Texans, and he's going to really need to be even better if the Houston Texans want to compete this year, as he is really the lone wide receiver standing. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell might be out the whole season with injuries. So Nico Collins, a lock-in for the Houston Texans' sake. With that being said, Nico Collins had a great season last year, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Yeah, he's proved that he can be the wide receiver 1, but he will get the ball a lot more this year now that there's no competition. Number 14, one of the older guys on the list, but also probably the most consistent guy on the list, we have Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Honestly, I think Mike Evans might borderline be a top 10 wide receiver of all time. What he's been able to do and how consistent he's been, the production he's had, he's limited the injuries, and he has tied Jerry Rice for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. With one more 1,000-yard season, he will break the record and just go into a complete tier of his own in consistency. Mike Evans is an all-time great. Number 13, we got LA Rams' Puka Nacua. After going off in his rookie season and breaking the single-season rookie receiving record, Puka Nacua actually kind of cooled off in 2024. He He did not reach the 1,000-yard rush receiving mark in his sophomore season, but still, he was really solid and proved that he can be a good playmaker for this LA Rams team and can still be Matthew Stafford's favorite target. I will be interested to see if his numbers increase or decrease with the acquisition of Davante Adams, but only time will tell. Either way, Puka is physical and great. At number 12, we have Scary Terry of the Washington Commanders, a guy who's currently holding out from his team. He wants a new extension. He might get traded. Who knows what's going on with Terry McLaurin. But last year, he proved that give him a good quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and he will rack up yards and be a consistent, deep threat for the Washington Commanders offense as they went to the NFC Championship last year. McLaurin sort of had a breakout season, although we always knew that he could be a talented wide receiver. But give him a talented quarterback, and he will do even better, and he had a career year. Number 11, we got New York Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Possibly has some of the best hands in all of football. Garrett Wilson has been truly awesome in this league his whole career. It's just the offense in New York has not been good for the past couple of years, so his numbers aren't as good as some of the other guys on this list. Garrett Wilson is a mossing machine, makes just crazy catches every time, and even with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, he still racked up 1,100 receiving yards, and is a constant bright spot on this pretty sad New York Jets offense. Kicking off the top 10, we have 2024 breakout player Jaxon Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks. Year 2 Jaxon Smith-Njigba was absolutely awesome last year. 1,130 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns is great stuff. Geno Smith always found him. But yeah, now with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett gone, he is the main guy in this wide receiver room. And I'll be interested to see if he can handle that pressure, especially with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. Not so sure how that will affect his numbers, but yeah, it'll be fun to watch, and JSN's always fun to watch. Number 9, coming back for his second year, we have New York Giants wide receiver Malik Nabers. What Malik Nabers was able to do in this horrible Giants team as a rookie can't be overlooked. He was a bright spot on this New York Giants offense that was absolutely horrendous last year, one of the worst in all of football, but he still had 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was just a great draft pick for the Giants offense, and he's going to be really good for a really long time. I'm excited to see what he does with more competent quarterback play this year, and I think he'll be the focal point of their offense. Number 8, we got the ever solid, ever consistent A.J. Brown, absolute tank of a human being, and now he's got a Super Bowl ring, so that adds more to the A.J. Brown resume. A.J. Brown was so solid for the Eagles last year, one of the best and most reliable wide receivers. He had 1,000 yards once again, 7 touchdowns, and PFF ranks him as the 3rd best wide receiver in all football at 90.9. If A.J. Brown wasn't in one of the best run offenses in football, Saquon, and wasn't sharing catches with Devontae Smith, it's unbelievable to think what his numbers could be in a different offense. Number 7, we have another breakout player from the 2024 season. We have Drake the Snake London from USC and the Atlanta Falcons. It's kind of funny because you get Arthur Smith out of the building and they find their number 1 wide receiver much more times. It's unbelievable. Drake London had an absolutely insane year 3 in the NFL, and that is also with some really inconsistent quarterback play from Kirk Cousins. Even Michael Penix had some off games in there as well. The stats speak for themselves. 1,271 yards and 9 touchdowns is really solid. You gotta love London. Number 6, he quietly had one of the greatest wide receiver rookie seasons of all time. We have Jacksonville Jaguars sophomore wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. Like Malik Nabers, he was in an absolutely horrendous offensive system. Brian Thomas Jr. was in a terrible Jacksonville Jaguars team, but still, his numbers were great, and he was one of the best wide receivers in football, and even better than Malik Nabers. Thomas Jr. was a fantasy legend for my fantasy team, and I'm sure he'll do great things in the NFL as he was 3rd in total receiving yards as a rookie, which is absolutely amazing. Number 5, a guy who didn't have as good of a season as we would have liked, but he's still one of the most talented wide receivers easily in football. We got CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, CeeDee struggled with injuries last year and was on a horrible Dallas Cowboys team that had no offensive identity, but he still posted up good numbers even on this shady season. He'll make the big catches. He'll receive 1,000 yards a season, and he'll get the big touchdowns. He's everything you can need in a franchise wide receiver. And they got George Pickens as well, so yeah, the Cowboys might be pretty good this year. Number 4, talk about a crazy fall off, but we got Tyreek Hill. This is where I might start to lose some people. Sure, I know Tyreek Hill had an absolute tragic fall off last year. I know I was a fantasy football owner. I drafted him in the 1st round, and I'm personally pretty mad at him. But we know that Tyreek Hill at his best is the best wide receiver in football. And I'm not going to completely just forget about him just because he had a horrible season last year. I'm sure he'll be back and better than ever, and the Dolphins offense will be more locked in next year. Now, if Tyreek just proves that he's washed and does it again, I'll have to drop him. Kicking off the top 3, this is where we get really elite. We got Detroit Lions, our wide receiver 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown. St. Brown is just tough as nails. He remembers every wide receiver drafted ahead of him, and he's pretty much passed up most of those wide receivers drafted ahead of him as well. Even in this run-heavy offense, Amon-Ra St. Brown is still top 5 in receiving yards, only behind Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Brian Thomas Jr., as well as Drake London. Ever since his rookie year, St. Brown has just been a model of consistency and a bright spot on this Detroit Lions team that has asserted themselves as one of the best in football. The 1 and 2 spot are a bit of a toss-up, but unfortunately, it pains me to do this as a Vikings fan. I have to put Justin Jefferson at number 2. 1 and 2, you really could argue either way. One, Ja'Marr Chase is getting Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, but you can't argue with his stats. His are just a little bit better than Justin Jefferson's. And yeah, Justin Jefferson's stats were still unreal last year, even with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. He made Sam Darnold look great, and he had 1,533 yards, 10 touchdowns. Jefferson was as elite as ever last year, and he's one of the greatest. That means at number 1, we have Justin Jefferson's former teammate. Surprise, surprise, I kind of alluded to it at the last ranking, but we got Ja'Marr Chase at number 1. What Ja'Marr Chase was able to do on this Bengals team that didn't even make the playoffs was absolutely unreal. 1,708 yards. I don't care if you have Joe Burrow throwing you the ball or Doug Flutie. This is absolutely insane. His 17 touchdowns is just about more than anyone in football. It's not really even that close. Get the Bengals a good defense, and this could be a top 10 team of all time. But the defense is just solid. Thank you guys for watching. Tell me if you agree or disagree in the comments, and please subscribe, as we're trying to hit 100 before the NFL season starts.